In the book of Psalms, it say, the fool has said in his heart that there's no God. A fool is somebody that know better but don't care. Somebody that understand better but don't care. You say, that's a fool there. He'll say and do anything. He don't respect nothing. That's what you call a fool. Solomon said a rod for the fool back. Back in Solomon days, if you was stupid and you act a fool, he said, we got something for you. We'll put the rod on your back. Well, God got something for people that don't believe that there's a God. In the day of judgment, it come a time that you will be rewarded for your unbelief. You'll be rewarded for the wickedness that you work in this earth. That's what it was telling us in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, that the devil gonna be rewarded for his evil and his discord that he done sowed in this earth. The devil came down from the earth and said, woe, O earth, for the devil hath fallen. Woe, O inhabitant of the earth, because the adversary done fall into the earth. He said in the book of Job, where have I come from, devil, Lucifer? He said, from walking to and forth the earth. I'm walking from the earth where man at. I'm walking from the earth that the gospel is being preached. And I'm seeing who I can deceive as I did in the garden. I'm going to see who can I call not to believe in the sacrifice that Christ did up on the cross. We got people saying today that Jesus came and gave us grace and truth, and that we cannot lose out on God now because grace and truth came. Well, it was grace and truth in the garden. It was life in the garden. It was hope in the garden. But when man disobeyed God and disrespect the commandment of God, what he told them to do, then death came. If we disobey God and disrespect God in this time, since Jesus came and gave a sacrifice unto man in this world, in this realm of the earth, he done gave man hope. He done gave man life. He done prepared the way for man. He done sat a table in the presence of his enemy, which is the devil. He done prepared that table, which was his flesh, which was his blood, and he done gave man life in this earth. But if we will reject Jesus and say there's no God, there's no hope, there's no Savior, and we go about business as usual, disobedient as usual, and we go about our own thing. It used to be a song when I was in the world. It's my thing. I do what I want to do. Well, you got to pay for your thing. You got to pay for what you want. In this earth, if you want something, you got to pay for it. You want to live the extravagant life of the rich and famous? You forsake everything and everybody, and you go after that almighty dollar. You forsake your mama, you forsake your daddy, you forsake your church, you forsake your God, and you go after that almighty dollar, whatever it takes to get that dollar, and you will end up with that dollar. But remember this, if you get yours in this life, you won't have it in the world to come. If you reject God, you reject his grace, you reject his sacrifice that he sent to this earth, and you reject it and do your own thing. He said, if you be shamed on this earth to honor me, to lift me up on this earth, he said, when I come before my Father in heaven, I'm going to be ashamed of you. Who are you talking about? Anybody. Anybody that reject him. Anybody that take a lover other than God. Anybody that bow to a master other than Jesus Christ gonna have damnation in the world to come. I don't care if you don't spoke in tongue and fell out and crawl on your head, but if you reject Jesus Christ tomorrow and get caught in that state that you are in the state of rejecting Jesus, in the state of doing your own thing, and if death come upon you, that's going to be the state you're going to be judged in. That's why he said, one day at a time. You take one day at a time. Today is today. If you hear my voice and harden not your heart, like some in the wilderness in the day of provocation, they harden their heart And they rejected me when I came to Moses, when I gave Moses my law, when I gave Moses my commandment, when I spoke and used Moses to break the yoke of Pharaoh off of my people, which were the Hebrews. He said, those that rejected me fell dead in the wilderness. Said, serpent fell out of the heavens and it bit the people and they died. It had to be a remedy for that. Moses took a brass serpent, fashioned it, and put it up on a pole. The reason he took a brass serpent and put them on a pole, it was so many people in Israel in the wilderness, and they couldn't just come and look. But when they lift that serpent up, that brass serpent, and when the sun hit it, everybody could see what was going on. They could see that brass serpent lifted up. And when they seen that, the serpent that was falling out of heaven could not kill them. Jesus say, the Son of Man must be lifted up the same way that Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness. But newsflash, they took God's salvation in the wilderness from that serpent, and what they end up did, after God spared their life, they began to worship that serpent as a god. God had Moses to melt it down, to burn it up, and they drank the ashes of that serpent, if I'm not mistaken. We cannot take what God give us to bring salvation to us and put it before God. What God bring to give us hope in life, we cannot make an idol out of it. But we got to realize God and Him only going to be worshiped and praised. God come off the bat and said, I am a jealous God, and I will not have no other God before me. We as men lie and say, I'm not jealous of my wife. Women, we lie and say, I'm not jealous of my husband. But God, right off the bat, told you in your face, I am a God that is jealous, and I would not have no other God before me. You cannot moonlight with the devil, shack with the devil, homosexuality with the devil. You cannot lie, steal, and kill your fellow man and say you is of me. That's another God. He said, I will not have that before me. He said, I am a God that is holy and righteous and just. I am a God of life. He said, and anything else that brings death is not of me. He said, but I am the God that brings life. He gave man life in the Garden of Eden. Man's choice took that life from him because he obeyed the spirit of the serpent, of the devil in the serpent. Then death came upon him. Same way today that grace and truth came, and if we disobey grace and truth and walk after our own heart, see, you're going to have your own heart to the day you die, unless you die out daily to your heart, to your desire, to your flesh, to your way, to the lusts of your heart. What is the lust of your heart? What is the lusts of your heart? It is your own spirit desire, who you really are on the inside, your desire. And we feed our desire by rejecting God, by not learning His word, by not taking His yoke upon us and learning of Him. He said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. He said, come and learn of me. We need to learn of this Christ that died upon the cross. He the only one that brought us hope. He the only one brought healing and brought salvation. Look at the world today and people are dying. They kids are killing them. Wealthy kid, rich kid that don't want for anything, that done live the good life, that had silver spoons in their mouth, not just one, but multitude of silver spoons in their mouth, and they kill their parents. That's the spirit of the wicked one. That is the spirit of Cain that killed Abel in the days of Adam and Eve. He was wicked. He was jealous. He was envious. The book of Proverbs, Solomon, he put it this way. He said, jealousy is as cruel as the grave. Anybody that let the spirit of jealousy hide in their spirit, in their body, It is cruel as the grave. That's what jealousy is, and whoever get in. When it was in the devil, it was as cruel as the grave, and it got him kicked out of the heaven. When it was in Cain, it got Cain in trouble. When it get in us, it get us in trouble. It is time for us to realize that we need to talk with God. And we need to understand where we at in time. We need to understand the signs of the time. Jesus could not get his disciples to understand the sign of the time. Then they said, when is it going to come? When is it going to happen? He said, pay attention. He said, watch and pray. He said, then you'll know the signs of the time. Then he began to tell them, Matthew 24th, I believe, began to tell them about the signs of the time. We living in the last days now. We need to know who our God is. And we don't need a bunch of junk saying we know God and we have not been delivered. We don't need to say we know God and we still lying, we still cussing, we still drinking, we still smoking drugs, we still going to the later of the night houses that is on every corner of the red light district and say we are saved and we know God. I'm not saying people can't do wrong, but I don't want to say it that way because that's all we say. Well, you know we can't help but sin. David said, but flesh. That's an excuse when we say that. Because the enemy come and he listen. And he seen then that you don't accept that you might not can live right. You might not can do right. You can do right if you put your mind to it. If you put your heart to it. If you seek to modify the deeds of your flesh. If you seek to modify the deeds of your lusts. What brings forth death is lust. When lust is finished, it brings forth death. When lust is finished, it brings forth sin. And when sin is finished, when it came to its flower, it'll bring forth death. But Jesus came and brought forth life. When it was finished on that cross, he said, it is finished. So life sprung up. Man was redeemed from condemnation. Man will redeem from the ways of his flesh if he depend upon Christ. If he trusts this Christ that died on the cross. As this Christ obeyed his Father to the letter, we have to obey this Christ to the letter. We have to study to show ourselves approval, a workman that need not to be ashamed, but rightly divide the word of truth. We need to take the Bible. It came to us from generation. It came through the blood of Christ to us, that we may have hope. Without the shedding of blood, there's no sacrifice of sin. The blood of oxen, sheep, and goat could not redeem man. It was just something that would keep man to the time that Christ came. It was like a schoolmaster, the law, the prophet. It all was like a schoolmaster to keep us to grace and truth got him. To Christ got him. See, we say we can't lose salvation. Jesus said the sacrifice that they did back in the Old Testament, they had to do it every year. He said, but this Christ came and died one time to forgive man's sin for all time if he abide in this Christ. If he picked this Christ up, he walked after this Christ. If he let this Christ be the lamp unto his feet and the light unto his path, and he received this Christ on the inside of him, he could overcome the devil. The book of Revelation, the 5th chapter, talk about John. We call him John the Revelator because he gave us the book of Revelation. God spoke to this John when they put him on the island of Patmos. They put him there to exile him and to break his will, to break his spirit. They try to kill him. They tell me they boil him in oil and tar and feather him and push him off a cliff, and he didn't die. So they took him to an island to isolate him and to break his will. When you obey God, when you trust God, when you let God be your God, it ain't nothing that the enemy can do to you to break your will and to destroy your relationship with God if you abide in the vine and the vine abide in you. You can ask what you will and it'll be done to you. God spoke to me and showed me I was before the nation. And they drugged me, strong drug, to dilute my mind, to cause my mind not to focus upon this God that I was preaching. But it didn't faze me at all. They put me in a straitjacket, and it didn't faze me at all. The same way they did John. You got some people that are going to go through for God, for Christ. They're going to suffer. If we suffer with him, we shall reign with him. We shall be able to judge angels in the world to come. Paul said, I believe in the 6th chapter of 1 Corinthians, you can't judge small things of this world. You can't discern between what the devil doing in this life. How are you going to judge angels? He said you go to court one to another against each other. But how are you going to judge angels if you can't judge the small matter of this life? We say you shouldn't judge. You better be able to judge and know what a devil's seed is. You better be able to judge and know when the devil is walking in his fullness upon this earth. We're living in a time now that we're going to need Christ. I'm talking about God, the devil, man, and in this life, in this world. This is a real thing here, now. It's real. And if you lose your soul here, it's lost forever. If you reject Jesus here, Jesus is going to reject you on the other side. If you fall away from Christ, from the sacrifice that Christ done did, then you're not fit for the kingdom. You're not fit for what God got. If you sell out to the devil, Judas was with Christ, walked with Christ, heard the teaching, seen the miracle, ate from the loaf that was multiplied. But he rejected him here in this life, in this time. People say, well, it was ordained for him to reject. Well, he had a choice. People say, no, he didn't have no choice. Jesus said, whosoever will. What? Whosoever will. What that mean? Whoever will, that want to, let him come and let him drink. He said, I freely give it to whosoever. It ain't a gender. Y'all beat down a female, tell her they can't talk about their Savior, but they can die and go to hell for eternity. You beat them down and say, well, we man and we superior. Well, when God made man and made woman, he made woman to be a helpmate. Only thing I know a helpmate is somebody help you do what you're doing. And if that person help you do what you're doing, and if you can make it hard for that person by being foolish and stupid and making the wrong choices, and you can bring property up on that woman, you can bring hardship, you can bring division in your home, you can divorce your wife and walk away from her and your kids, and you bring hardship up on her, and you call her to commit adultery because she's lonely, she needs somebody to help her, and you done walked away from her. Jesus said you call her to commit adultery. And vice versa. You said, well, no, he didn't say that. Well, he said he put man here. And we say, well, it's woman too. It's mankind and woman. Okay? It's the same way. If a woman walk away from her husband, just because she wanted to walk away from him, she calls him to commit adultery. Because she's supposed to be there to meet his need, to be a helpmate to him, and to help him to stay strong. This is a time for us to realize that the hand of the Lord is stretched to whosoever will. And he said, go into all nations and preach the gospel. Who was he talking to? The body of Christ. The believer in what Christ came to this earth and did. That's who he was talking to when he said, go into all the world and make disciples of all